he's hit this one, Miles. Great shot. Oh, it's a biggie. Straight over the top. The little man has hit the big fella for six. He's off his size. And he's smashed him down the ground. What a player. What a wonderful player.
The cricket nuts.
You are listening to The Cricket Nuts, a podcast where we sit down and talk about a host of issues around cricket, the sport we all live and love. You should expect our views to be passionate, honest, emotional, and adequately analytical. On this show, you will hear Jay, Uday, and myself, Bishen, a motley crew from the fields of law, hospitality, and marketing, thrash it out on our common passion.
Hello, everyone. So, welcome to the fourth episode of our show, The Cricket Nuts. I don't know if we can call this a podcast anymore because this is the first episode where we're having video on the show. We may have to call this a vlog or a video blog or a video podcast. I'm not sure what the right term is. So let's call it a podcast for now. So the fourth episode of our show is on cricket culture, whether it's good or bad for the sport, decoding it a little bit to break it down for everybody and for all of us as well during the course of the show. But before we start, I just realized that we have been quite impolite to all the people who helped us with this show and not really thanked them on the show. So I'd like to say a thank you to Mohammad Safi, who's always helped with editing, Bianca Jeswant, who's helped with the logo, who also is my sister, and Prithvi Prajosh, who's helped with music for this show. Prithvi is also a up-and-coming music artist and who will have this podcast the last time before it goes up. So Prithvi, please feel free to add your handle when you post this show. And
yeah, you must.
Let me introduce.
And just to add, Bishen also does a fair degree of editing on the show, so he's a part. He's also an editor.
So that's
dabblers
for the first time.
Dabblers with everything that we do right now. Things hopefully will evolve into something more streamlined and error-free as we go along.
Okay, so that's the three of us. I don't know if you can see our names on the show, but Uday, just wave so that people know that's you.
Hi.
Jay.
This is Jay.
And Bishen. Okay, so let's get started. If you've watched our previous 3 episodes, you know that we break our show into a few different segments, 4 segments usually. On this show as well, the first segment will be on setting out what we think superstar culture is. We'll move on to the goods and bads, the pros and cons of superstar culture. In the third segment, we'll tell you about how cricket and superstar culture is unique. And then we'll finally try and take a position on this in the fourth segment. So to get this going, Uday, do you want to start by telling us what you think superstar culture is and set out your a position statement on it?
Sure. So superstar culture, according to me, would be the emergence of one outstanding player, somebody who really, performs over a given period of time, captures the audience's imagination, and really starts performing consistently in the field, and then he moves on because of the sheer weight of his performances to become an influencer, somebody who really people start looking up to, who they start hanging on his every word, they start following his every performance. He becomes a larger than life figure, and it's more applicable, I believe, in a country like India where we love our superstars, whether it be our movies or our cricket. So that is for me what a superstar is. And then the culture around him is when people start hero worshipping him, and then his utterances start influencing the game, how it's played, possibly influencing selections, and there's intense media scrutiny on this person. Whether that's good or bad is something we can discuss over the course of the show. So there is a culture and an aura built around this individual, which is my view of my understanding of what I see as superstar culture. Jay?
Yes, I would dwell on both the goods and the bads of having a superstar culture, whether it's movies or a sport like cricket. I think it goes both ways. The culture of having a superstar, like what Uday just mentioned, an outstanding player who gets all the attention, who takes the team on his shoulders in more ways than one, as far as the image of the team is concerned or the game itself. At the same time, when superstars tend to get more attention and more importance more than the sport itself. That's where I have a problem. My problem largely revolves around the fact that superstars are always not great for the sport. In many ways, as far as the marketing and growth of the game is concerned, superstars are important. But as far as the real sport is concerned, I think superstars need to be treated like any other player in the team. And the culture that revolves around this, like you said, Uday, the film culture that is kind of crept into the cricketing firmament, for instance, in our country. A lot of it is like the Hindi film industry, for that matter. There's a superstar. There are a few superstars who rule the roost, and the others are just like trying to survive, doing odd movies here and there. So pretty much the same way. I think that culture is what I was referring to. Bishen?
Yeah. So for me, let me just try to give it a context that's more relatable in our setting. I mean, after all, we are not from Bollywood or the Indian cricket team. So I think in our context, let's say a work situation. There will be people at work who are extremely high performers, who are stars at work. And such people naturally in any work setting will get more attention from the higher ups, from the management. Such people will naturally get higher increments, higher bonuses than you, right? So in this scenario, so they are superstars. Now, the superstar culture itself to me is a neutral term. And people who are in the organization growing in this way, they deserve it. They deserve the extra increment, they deserve the extra bonuses, they deserve the extra attention from senior management, etc. So, and for the other people working with them, their peers, also this is not a problem because you have someone who's competent to work with. Maybe they inspire you, maybe you learn from them, etc. So, this situation for me is not a problem. This is also a superstar culture situation, but not a problem. When does it become a problem? For me, it becomes a problem when the people around this high performer at work react in different ways, and that person himself reacts in different ways. Let's say at work, for example, that person starts becoming abusive to his colleagues, or that person starts coming in late to work regularly, right? So when people start behaving like that, like they're privileged or they're royalty, that's when superstar culture becomes a problem. And people around him, his peers and his management, when they start condoning these things, when they think it's okay for this person to come late, that it's okay for this person to boss around his equals, then it becomes a problem. Or when they start disrespecting the other people. Now, let's say I am in this office and I got a certain amount of respect. Because someone has become a superstar, as long as they continue respecting me the way they always did, I should really have no problem. But when they start disrespecting me because somebody else is a superstar, that's when you start feeling the pinch. And I think this can translate equally into the sporting universe as well to understand the superstar culture. So that's the context that I wanted to set from my perspective.
Yeah, I think Bishen, what you just said has relevance, but at the same time, we are talking about sports, and it's I don't know if I'm not too sure if it's a comparable scenario, a corporate or a job environment.
It is there. I'll come to it. I was trying to avoid spending too much time on it right now, but with a little bit of imagination, I think you can transport this situation into the sporting world.
You can very easily. You can. You don't need imagination for that. I think you can just very easily do that. But the point I'm trying to make is here when we talk about sport, and every cog in the wheel is important, right? Every player in the team is important. That's what I was coming to. So
okay, so Jay, so since you said it, you have made me go into a little bit more detail.
I think we should complete that point. Yeah.
So hear me out then. So in a situation, let's say Virat Kohli scores a lot of runs for India across the world in different conditions. Okay. Now it is only natural that cricket writers will praise him. It is only natural that the fans will love and adore him. It is only natural that BCCI next year will make sure that he is in the top bracket of the pay grade. It is only natural that brands will want to endorse him, right? So you cannot grudge him for getting all of these things. He's now
there is no grudge.
Let me finish there.
There is no grudge. I was only saying Virat Kohli alone is not the team, or one player alone is not the team.
Let me finish my point.
Yeah,
right?
Sure. So
in this scenario, Virat Kohli has now become a superstar, and he makes more money than everybody, and the world loves him, media loves him, fans love him. This should not be a problem as far as I'm concerned. When does it start becoming a problem? It starts becoming a problem when the BCCI starts condoning some of, say, Virat Kohli's actions, for example, which they would not condone if somebody else did. For example, Virat Kohli going on leave during the Australia tour. Would that be something which other players could have done and got away with, for example? Or let's say in the case of somebody else like Sachin Tendulkar, not the BCCI, but the public in large, with respect to that Ferrari issue, where he wanted his tax waived on it. If it was not Sachin Tendulkar, would his tax have got waived? Right? That's
Absolutely.
again our reaction, the public and the government's reaction to a superstar trying to enforce his authority. Would somebody like Virat Kohli somebody else have got away with talking into the stump mic the way he did, or abusing other players? Maybe not. So I'm saying it's when people around the superstar start reacting differently to the superstar. Or if next year the BCCI starts downgrading Pujara and Rahane, not anymore, I guess we have not as much respect for them, but downgrading other players' payments and paying Virat Kohli more, then that becomes an issue. But as long as Pujara, Rahane continue getting the same respect that they always did, I don't think there should be a problem.
That's I think Bishen, you just added more meat to what I was saying. That basically, if it wasn't Virat Kohli, I don't think any other player would have got away with what he did. Walking away from the Aussie tour, for instance. Thankfully, India won the series. That's a different matter. So I think these are the instances that I'm talking about.
Uday, you wanted to add something before we move on?
Yeah, I just want to say Virat going back, I think was because of the birth of his child, right? And I don't think that's something that's accorded only to superstars. I think any individual who's in the team who's going through a personal situation, like when Bumrah was getting married, he took time off, or same when
I think the
Pujara
point only there, Uday, not that people shouldn't be given leave. That's not the point. But would a brand new person who had joined the team, who was making his debut, could he have said, I want to go home and spend time with my wife? For example, on that same tour, T. Natarajan, on that tour also had a child. But he didn't feel like he had the ability to say, I will go home now.
Yeah, that's true.
Siraj lost his father in the same tour. So these are glaring, absolutely glaring, examples of that culture that I was talking about, which probably is not good for the sport.
Okay, so I think we have discussed a lot of the pros and cons as well in this segment. The second segment was meant to be dedicated to the pros and cons of superstar culture. So let's maybe quickly do a round of pros if we think that the superstar culture in its neutral meaning has any benefits to the sport. Uday, do you want to start?
Right. So without talking about the negative connotations, I think superstars are extremely important for the marketing of the sport. A sport like cricket, where we have not all countries in the world play cricket. I think to market the sport as a brand and to grow the sport, I think we need those big players. I think it has helped a lot of teams. It has helped the ICC associate member teams as well. So, and their influence on the team in general, I think we should also accept the fact that, or rather appreciate the fact that these superstars take on a lot more than what people think they do, with respect to their fitness, with respect to their the level of expectations on their performance. I think they all have a lot of pressure on them. I think that's something that it's the up and coming players look at them and they probably imbibe their work ethic, their preparations, the kind of prep that they do before a game. All those things are extremely important. So these are the good things about having big players or the superstar players, and that's how they can influence the up and coming guys and set the right kind of work ethic in the team. So yeah, these are just a few things. Yeah.
I'd agree. I mean, I wouldn't want to repeat some of the points that you've said. They definitely, to give an example of somebody like a Sachin in the 90s, he influenced an entire generation of cricketers, and just with his attitude to the game, his discipline, his achievements. I mean, I mean, we know that in the early 90s, the Indian batting wasn't at its best, and other than Sachin, you had very few players really coming through also who were able to carry the weight of the team. So Sachin really carried the team on his shoulders almost single-handedly in batting through much of those 90s, and so for a lot of upcoming cricketers, for the youngsters watching the game, his work ethic, his dedication to the game became something to really model themselves on. Not and if you even look at countries like Pakistan, where Imran Khan became like this, he was a superstar, a superhuman kind of a figure in Pakistan. His general demeanor, the way he chose handpicked players like Wasim Akram or a Waqar Yunus, and he had this eye for spotting talent. He was given the importance by the board also. They recognized that he was a figure who was who had these strong views, and he could take the game forward in Pakistan. So that was another example of somebody really using the influence that they had to positively take the team forward. So I think Imran Khan's effect on Pakistan cricket was massive. Similarly, Shane Warne revolutionizing leg spin in it was called a dying art at that time in the 90s, where we had very few leg spinners coming through. So his becoming a superstar, his achievements, the way he captured the imagination, his behavior sometimes bordered on the boorish, but then his phenomenal ability to turn the ball square of non-responsive pitches also influenced a whole a generation of leg spinners to really come through and start performing.
I think Shane Warne deserves a whole show dedicated to him. I think someday we should do a show on Shane Warne. No, there's so much to talk about Shane Warne.
Very true, very true. And Dhoni in the late the mid 2000s onward, the way he brought in the attitude of calmness and achievement, but without without seemingly being arrogant, just going out there, getting things done, standing by his players, and that almost Zen attitude that he carried forward. So these are, and then youngsters, everyone from young and old, Dhoni just inspired the nation, right? And the 2011 World Cup, the way he responded to it, the way, his classic way of, despite being such a superstar, getting a trophy and then giving it to the other players, and just always taking, staying away from the limelight consciously, going and standing behind. And, these are some examples of a superstar consciously, allowing others to take the limelight and not really pushing his views or pushing his face or his persona into the camera. So I think these are some of the examples of some positives of superstar culture.
Yeah, to add maybe a couple of points. One, I think the status or situation that the sport in question is relevant to determine what impact a superstar can have. For example, budding sports in India like kabaddi, or maybe 10 years ago women's badminton. These are sports that were not growing in urban India or even rural India at all, or becoming really popular. And the emergence of someone like Saina and subsequently Sindhu really was a shot in the arm for women's badminton, which was almost a non-existent sport in India. So it literally got carried and lifted to this situation that it is currently in, where we're winning Olympic medals in the sport because of superstars. If we didn't have Saina, there would be no women's badminton. It would not be at the level at which we are today, winning world championships. Similarly for kabaddi, right? We have some superstars now. They're still not maybe household names across the country, guys like Manjeet Chillar and Pardeep Narwal. But it is because of guys like this that in tier 2 cities in India, the Pro Kabaddi League, etc., has made kabaddi a hugely popular sport. And these are guys now earning a crore and a half each contracts, which you could only imagine cricketers would get that kind of money. But now kabaddi players are getting it. So it's really because of superstars that these sports have come up. And then it's not that they don't have a role in established sports, like say cricket itself. If not for Virat Kohli stressing the importance of Test cricket over the last 5 years, it's made a huge difference. He, at every given opportunity, tells the world that Test cricket's the toughest format. It's the number one format of the sport. It has
He
to
really
be,
did. He
it
really
has to
did.
be
I
held
think
at the
that-
highest standard, and
Yes,
has
indeed,
definitely played a role in bringing Test cricket up and at least ensuring it's not diluted. Jay,
Everything
why don't
comes
you
in.
quickly do a U-turn and talk about the cons as well now, since you're
Absolutely. I think that's what I kind of specialize in, as you know.
Yeah.
So I think we have a lot of things to talk as far as the negatives are concerned. It largely revolves around the fact that the team is paramount, and more often than not, what happens is when the superstars are at play, both on the field and off it, they are allowed a lot of liberties. They're allowed a lot of even with the way people they react on the pitch. Sometimes, again, in individual sport, you see Roger Federer, a guy who looks absolutely calm and composed on the tennis court. All of a sudden, you see him banging the racket on the court and stuff like that. I think a lot of them get away with it. So that's one of the reasons why I've always maintained that superstars or no superstar, they all should have be measured with the same yardstick. The yardstick to measure their behavior, the yardstick to measure their display of emotions should all be the same. It should not be the case where a superstar shows his emotions out in the open and gets away with it, while a youngster who's just trying to make the grade or just got a chance for the first time or the second time gets criticized or probably gets omitted from the side for having done something that he was not supposed to. So that is one. And the other thing is you also see some of the superstars not being able to handle pressure, right? And that sets a bad example. And they their reactions under pressure, their like I said earlier, the way they react to situations, all those things matter. I think it's, and if they are accorded that,
but isn't that a personality problem, Jay? How do they fix it?
It could also be a personality problem, but that's exactly what I'm trying to say, Bishen, is that a superstar who has a personality problem is probably not good for the sport.
Yeah, but how do you strip the status away from him? He's already become a superstar on the weight of his performance. How do you strip it away from him?
Exactly.
I think that happens automatically. See, for instance, not everybody likes Virat Kohli for his expressions of elation, for his expressions of success and stuff like that. Not everybody approves of what he does, right? And I mean, if you talk about the regional differences, there could also be some regional differences at play there, with respect to displaying or demonstrating or being very demonstrative about what you feel about a certain situation on the pitch.
No, so Jay, just to further that, so what do you suggest happened? Let's say someone or many people at large don't like the way Virat Kohli conducts himself. What do we do about it now?
Well, that's exactly where the board steps in. That's exactly what the board has done now, right? I think what the board has done is fantastic. That's what I feel. I think, he was very vocal about the fact that he was stripped of the ODI captaincy without his knowledge, and he was told about it 90 minutes before it, before a meeting, and stuff like that. So I think the board is taking action. I think the board is being fair.
Okay, Uday, we'll discuss Virat Kohli on a different episode. I know you're itching to talk about it.
Yeah,
I know, I'm very...
But I suggest we move on to the cons of superstar culture.
Bishen's like a mind reader. He knew I wanted to pounce on that point and say, I disagree. I get what you're saying, but I think many a time a superstar doesn't ask to be a superstar, right? I mean, a Virat Kohli, for instance, when he first came in, or even like a Messi, for instance, when they first came in, they just proved themselves on pure talent, right? On their abilities. They didn't go out there and I mean, and then as Bishen was saying earlier, due to them performing over a period of time, and the people start appreciating. They look forward to most of the people we've spoken about acknowledge that. They acknowledge that, there is a part that the team members have to play for wherever they have reached. But just to go back to Bishen's point. I mean, I don't want to transgress from what we were saying. So the couple of things that I think the cons are, I think there are times when certain players aren't perform over a period of time and then don't seem to be able to take the mantle of being able to be those not necessarily the leader but that person in the team who everybody relies on. So it kind of seems to weigh them down, the weight of expectations. One classic example that I could think of when I was thinking about this topic yesterday is a guy like Vinod Kambli, who started off with Sachin, and was for a period of time in the 90s was almost on par with Sachin in terms of performance, in terms of capturing in terms of people really giving him that adulation. And then, he just could not manage that ability-wise, or in terms of losing his head and with his partying and whatever. I mean, he just could not really handle all the affection that came his way. So that is one aspect. I think a player needs some kind of guidance always when fame suddenly, when he becomes a recipient of too much fame all of a sudden. That's one aspect. The second aspect about superstar culture, which really gets to me sometimes, is there is a presumption that these so-called superstars are experts in every form of the game, and that necessarily need not be the case. So the board doesn't need to think that the board or any set of players doesn't need to think that these are the guys who will always their views are always a testimony or paramount, and that is good for the game. Classic example which runs to me, I'll make this point and pass on to Bishen, is the one where Dhoni and Sachin, for being the superstar they were for a long time, stalled DRS. They kept they had one bad series in Sri Lanka where DRS didn't work as expected, and then they just kept stopping. They told the board that no, we should not have DRS, and for a long period of time India was the only country where a series would not have DRS, because Dhoni used to keep making these things about it not being 100%, and if you jump out of a plane without a parachute, I mean, if a parachute doesn't work, and he used to give some weird kind of similes, which I don't think really was in the benefit of the game. So this is one example of a superstar influence which didn't really go in the right way. Sorry, Bishen, you can go on. I can go on about this, but I don't want.
And there's one more point that I wanted to mention, which is no matter how much we try to brush certain things under the rug, it doesn't work. For instance, when it comes to earnings, compensation of the so-called superstars vis-a-vis the others, I think there is bound to be some, negative vibes around when someone's making. See, everybody is in it for the money, right? It's very clear. Passion for the sport, passion for the game, of course, it has to be there. But at the end of the day, when there is such disparity, like what we have in IPL, we have a player who's probably paid upwards of 15 crores for one season, and you have a player who's probably paid 2 crores, and he might end up doing a lot better than the guy who is paid 15 crores. Right. So that kind of disparity, I think the central contracts and the A levels and the B levels and stuff like that. Again, I think it's a never-ending discussion. I don't think we are in the right place for it. But having said that, I think that disparity in earnings or compensation or endorsement contracts and the money that comes with it, everything at the end of the day has a bearing on the team spirit and the way a team plays. I think that's one reason why I've always felt that the Australian team that particular team has done phenomenally well over the years, with some lean patches in between. I think there is a lot of parity in a lot of ways within the team. I'm not saying the Indian cricketing setup is bad or something. It's certainly not. I think we have come a long way in the last decade or so, or a little more than a decade. Let me put it that way. So I think these are issues that linger. These are issues that are surely there, and people, and we are all human beings, and every single player will have something to feel about
it. So just to make the point on, I think what Jay was saying, I don't agree with it, on morale being compromised, team harmony being compromised, because somebody is a bigger superstar, somebody is earning more money. Those are
no, it's not exactly for those reasons, Bishen. How it plays out because
for
of
whatever
the fact
reasons,
that
right? Jay? Ultimately,
given
those are the reasons. The reasons are he's such a big star, he's making a lot of money, brands are endorsing him. Those are the reasons. What are the reasons?
Those reasons eventually have they
Exactly.
surely have
So my point is those are purely human reactions to situations. It's possible that some people in the team are upset that Virat Kohli or Dhoni or whoever is making more money, has more endorsements, has more popularity, whatever it is. But
classic envy.
Correct.
Yeah.
So now that's not a situation that can be solved. One, and I don't think a situation that has to be solved either, because these are issues that are sorted out by market forces. The player who's making 2 crores today has the ability in the next auction to make 15 crores. It's not that teams don't want to pay him. Teams want to buy people who suit their team the most. And if that's the
I don't agree with that at all. I don't agree with that simply because of the fact that if we were to take IPL for an example, like I said, that 15 crores versus 1 crore or 2 crores, there's no comparison there, right? You can't say market forces will take care of it.
No, but that is the reason why somebody pays 15 crores.
How can no, it won't. How can market forces take care of it?
Because they love Dhoni. They are paying Dhoni money because you have a team. Value to the team.
No, fair enough. Dhoni is probably a case in isolation because they need him as the head of the team. He's a lot more than just the captain for CSK, for that matter, right? And they have retained him over and over again. But what I'm saying is the disparity between 15 crores and 2 crores is so much, and the guy who eventually leaves his blood on the field and after a game and helps the team win might be getting only 2 crores. But having said that, I also feel
this discussion is only. No,
let me. I will complete what I said. I was just saying, Bishen. So this is a scenario that typically happens in a lopsided approach to anything for that matter. While IPL is great in so many ways, I think IPL is lopsided in so many other ways. So this is one of those things.
Yeah, I mean, it's very nice to say things in the air like that, Jay, but the fact is that it's not that the guys who are getting 2 crores are getting below minimum wage, right?
Yeah, now, that's true.
If we are talking about people making a lot of money, people making a lot more money. And that's where the example of Jay, let me finish.
Exactly. So
let me finish.
They're already overpaid.
Let me finish.
Let me finish. Let Bishen finish.
Yeah.
This is the same example of in a workplace as well. If somebody is getting 2 crore rupees as bonus and somebody performs much better and they get 8 crore rupees as bonus, you can't grudge that guy. You become that guy.
Certainly not.
You become that guy. Work harder and become that guy. As long as your bonus is not being cut from 2 crores to 1 crore, you should not have an issue, right? Because these are determined by market forces. Moving on to our third segment, and we'll now be discussing how superstar culture in cricket is different from that in other sports, or if it is at all. Uday, you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that it's too different. I think a superstar having a positive impact on the team is relevant in either sport, and if in any team sport, and if it's a detrimental impact also. I mean, I can think of football wherein while Diego Maradona was this hugely inspirational player and a fantastic talent on the field. We've heard and read stories where many an upcoming talent in Argentina they were discouraged or not really encouraging the right talent to come through from there. While those may be just hearsay stories, I mean, we know about Diego Maradona's habits, the adverse influence that would have had on many of the people who looked up to a superstar like him. Very similar to cricket, wherein there were cricketers. I mean, there was a superstar like Hansi Cronje, for example. You can call him a superstar because the way he captained South Africa during those early 90s was quite amazing, right? And then he unfortunately had the betting scandal, and then that impacted South African cricket for some time. So I think a superstar's demeanor and his behavior and off the field has a big impact in either sport, whether it's cricket or any sport. So in cricket, you have many fashion icons. I mean, maybe Chris Gaines, who Jay was talking about earlier, was like a fashion icon in terms of his long hair and the way he carried himself and everything. And he did back that up with performance. Like he did back that up with performance, but sadly, fell by the wayside again when it came to the betting scandal and ICL and everything. So, yeah. What do you think, Bishen? I mean, what is your view on this?
For me, I don't think the superstar culture is different really from sport to sport. But if you look at it in the context of India, superstar culture, cricket in India, I think the sufferers of that are not only other people within cricket but other sports and superstars in other sports.
That's true.
Are the
That's true.
sufferers of the superstar culture in Indian cricket, because there's only so much space for the media to capture superstars. There's only so many endorsement openings that are available for superstars, and most of it is hogged by cricketers. And what is not hogged by cricketers is hogged by Bollywood, which means that superstars in other fields don't really have really much of an opportunity, despite however good they are. So I don't think the uh, other people in the cricket fraternity should be upset as much as other sports and superstars in other sports are upset. I mean, even like Olympic medalist, someone like Neeraj Chopra, right? While he got a lot of adulation right after the Olympics, currently he's preparing for his events and nobody really follows him at all, whether it's media or endorsement, apart from the one cred ad which keeps playing. There's really little recall value that Neeraj Chopra has anymore. I mean, despite him being arguably the greatest Indian Olympian, Abhinav Bindra, etc. Yeah. So I think that's the one big point on superstar culture with respect to other sports. And I don't know, the other, it comes back to the point I was making in my first section, which is that superstar culture is not to do with the individual himself or herself, but how the people around him or her treat him and make him out to be. So there is a role that all of us have as fans, as the media, to make sure that people are not larger than the game itself and that we protect the integrity of the various games.
Very true. Yeah.
I think what matters is the board and the administrators should not allow a wrong sense or a false sense of entitlement to creep into a mindset of a player who's obviously more talented or more gifted than the other players in the team. And I think that's where it all starts and that's where it ends. I think the board has the responsibility to ensure that those kind of things don't creep in. And like you said, Uday, I think you were talking about Maradona. I think he probably was a reason for someone like Juan Roman Riquelme not playing the 2010 World Cup in South Africa. And to me, as a person who has followed football for a very long time, Riquelme was one of the best that I have ever seen in the midfield. So I mean, these are you can always compare that with a sport like cricket, where multiple captains, so-called superstar captains, have ensured that certain careers didn't take off. So, I mean, I don't want to be dropping names here. I think people who follow cricket in India know what, who did what to which player. I think these are things that, the board and the administrators should ensure that those kind of things don't come in at all.
Okay, so that's bringing us somewhat to the end of our show. To wrap up, we will each of us try and give you our position on where we land with respect to superstar culture and whether we think it's good, bad, or needs change. Anybody volunteering to go first?
Uday?
I just say that the only to just take off from a point I made earlier, I think the board can do a little bit in terms of guiding younger players, trying to help them in terms of how to achieve, how to handle fame at a young age. I think that's something that some younger players need. They seem, some of them really make wrong choices, and that's something that the board can avoid by just helping them. I don't think superstars are bad for the game. I think they've influenced the game in a very positive way, largely in India especially. If you look at Sachin and Virat and Dhoni, I think there's always going to be a craving for superstars in a culture like us, and I think most of them do drive the right behavior, and they've been great role models for the game. Yeah, there are areas where we can possibly criticize and say that they could have done better, or there could have been some things that could have been better. But on the whole, I think superstars have been great for the game of cricket, not just in India, like the example I gave earlier, even in Pakistan and other countries. So I don't think it's a real it's a factor which is really influencing or affecting cricket in a wrong way. Bishen?
Yeah, so for me, comes back to the creation of a superstar as an organic process. Nobody creates a superstar one fine day, right? A superstar becomes big on the weight of his performances, and I can't think of an artificially created superstar, right? Whether it is Sachin, Dhoni, Virat, whoever it is, on the weight of performance, you become a superstar. Now, everything that you get along with it, you deserve the money, the endorsements, the adulation, the credit from writers, media, whatever it is. So, all of that is perfectly fine. Now, where can there be some change? I think the responsibility lies in the hand of the governing body, the media, and the public. Now, the role of the governing body here is to make sure that you are not devaluing other players at the cost of promoting your superstars, because you have to promote a superstar. The superstars do
Correct.
a lot for the game, you have to promote them. But let that
Absolutely.
not be at the cost of the other players, whether it's in terms of giving them adequate respect or credit when there are wins, whether it is when you allot contracts to them, or in whatever way you can show them respect, make sure that you're not decrediting the others, right? They are important cogs in the wheel. They will
Yep.
get less than superstar. They won't be at the same level in terms of money or popularity or fame, but don't let them feel neglected. One. Two, I think the media has a massive role to play in this process. Now, what we all see and read, or rather what we all think of superstars, is based on what we see and read on the TV, or reading on websites, online content, etc. And who controls that? It's the media. So, media should take a
True.
lot of responsibility for making sure that other sports and other cricketers who are non-superstars get their share. Again, like I said, it will be less. This is where I disagree with what Jay was saying earlier, because it is natural superstar will get more. But you can make sure that the others don't get less than their fair share. Now, if Kidambi Sreekanth wins 4 Super Series in a year, make sure that gets as much credit as say Rahane scoring 100 BMCG. Sure, that's a great
Very true.
talk, but give both their equal place, right? Or their
Yeah.
respective appropriate place. So media has a huge role. The third role is of us as fans. Now, fans have a slightly lesser role because the fans' role is reactive to what the board and media does, and you can't really control. You can't tell the fan go and enjoy badminton as well. You can't force that on the fan, right? You can't say go and enjoy baseball.
Yeah.
He likes what he
Yeah.
likes. So, but the fans can also try to make sure that in their mind you don't suddenly you're not too fickle. So fickle-minded fans are generally an issue, and a large portion of fans will be fickle-minded fans. But if they can put it out there and get fans to also be conscious of the fact that you want everyone to get their credit, their role is much lower than governing body and the media, but they have a role as well. Is my point. So that's where I stand on superstar.
Nice. Nice.
Jay, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, sure. I said uh, when you talk about market forces, Bishen, the recognition, the fame, the money, it's all a result of market forces. And media today is an integral part of the market, what you call market forces, right? Media reports, the player becomes big, and endorsements flow in and stuff. So it's a chain reaction for there on it. So you have the media reporting, giving cricket a lot more newsprint than other sports, and then thereafter, and of course, in keeping with what cricket means for the general public and the traction that it has among the public. That's so market forces, media, I don't see much of a difference. As far as so a lot of researchers have proved that over the years in multiple sporting disciplines, teams started with superstars haven't necessarily performed to their best, right? So there are a lot of instances where you can take football in many cases where workman-like teams, like in the English Premier League, you have a Leicester City who have been pretty good in the last 4 or 5 years. Uday will agree with me, and they've beaten a lot of big ticket teams on a regular basis. And of course, I should also talk about the New Zealand cricket team that are the world test champions. No superstars, team work ethic, team spirit. So these are things that I would like to see in sport. So I can very well do without superstars entirely. I can do away with superstars and I can enjoy my sport. That's where I stand.
Okay, that brings us to a wrap. Though there was a small bit of trivia that I wanted to add in the first segment that I missed mentioning, which is on the first ever superstar. This is of course a bit subjective, but the first ever superstar is considered to be a guy called Jim Creighton, who was a baseball player from the mid 1850s. And now, at that time, of course, there was no superstar culture or anything as such, and the negative impacts of it came only maybe 200 years later. But I thought the first superstar was an interesting point to make, because Jim Creighton, being from Brooklyn in the US, and became famous because at that time baseball had underarm pitching and he could pitch very fast. But why I thought it's interesting to mention it is because he was also a cricketer in the US in the mid 1850s. And he used to play for the American Cricket Club, and English teams used to tour there. And he's considered to be an extremely good cricketer. And in fact, was even at some point taken 5 wickets of 6 balls, all bowled. So
amazing.
The first ever superstar, even if it was in the mid 1850s, was in a way a cricketer.
we can always trust Bishen on this podcast to come up with some fantastic trivia. That's amazing stuff, man.
Absolutely. I think my memory, or rather my memory in terms of reading about sports, reading about cricket in particular, cannot take me back beyond Gary Sobers. I think, of course, I read about Gary Sobers and his feats in cricket much later. That's where it all started for me. So I think it's just been a phenomenal growth for the game from that point onwards, I feel.
My closing statement would be, in this podcast, Bishen is our superstar, but then I think Jay and I trying to add value.
We are just the supporting cast. We are the
supporting guys, and untrue, but fine. What I'd like to say is, when you finish watching this episode, there is a superstar whose page you should go and like, who's Prithvi Prajosh, who will be the next superstar, and who is also part of our music and editing team. So please go and like his handle, while you also like and subscribe to our handles. Thank you so much, guys. Cheers.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Bye.